Welcome back to another edition of Bench Boost Boys with me, Gav, and who are you?
Still Scott.
Still Scott. Hello.
Hello. Did you have a fine weekend?
No. Did you?
I did.
Great, we'll get to that. This is Gameweek 12 forecast. Son of a hit!
I did my best to spoil your entry again then.
To spoil my entry?
Well, I didn't mean to...
You did your best to spoil my entry.
Well, I didn't realise...
You said you wouldn't tell people about that. So, if you'd like to join our private league, please do. The code is P2IFBX.
And a quick welcome to one of our newest players on the bench, Sean Lucas of MHR Legend. Welcome.
Welcome along. Okay. Enjoy your stay. Don't do better than us.
Don't pull a Peter Conomo and jump straight in and score 81 points.
Speaking of the world famous Peter Conomo, he sent in a question for the mailbag, which we'll get to towards the end of the show. So, quick rundown. We're going to go straight into Game Week 11 review, how our teams did. I'm sure you can't wait to talk about that, Scott. After a quick break, we will talk about players to watch and any kind of transfer news. Another break, Game Week 12 forecast fixtures. We'll go through that before finishing off with a mailbag and then what we're going to do with our teams this week. So, Scott, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's get it done.
So how'd you do, Gavin?
I did a point worse than the game week average, which is very sad for me.
Is that taking into consideration points hits?
I'm still massively confused about exactly when those points come off, but it is worth noting I did take a 4-point hit. What's much more tragic for me is I made my transfers quite early in the week and I brought in Callum Wilson of Newcastle, and I already had a couple of Villa players, and of course that game got postponed.
Yeah, so we recorded on a Tuesday night, and I think it was Wednesday morning when the news was out that they'd cancelled that game. So yeah, I think a lot of what we talked about we were going to do stopped being relevant the morning after the podcast was released.
Yeah, and somewhat ironically, I had talked with you about the fact that I was going to bring Bamford in, but went for Callum Wilson because I didn't like Leeds' fixture, as we'll touch on shortly.
Ooh. Well, Bamford went on to score, didn't he?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Bamford did score. So, joke's on me. So, yeah, what that actually meant for me, and we'll start with my bench then, I guess, is my bench consisted of Meslier of Leeds, who got 3 points, and then Grealish, Watkins and Wilson, who obviously got no points. So, it meant I had a really weird formation as well. 5 at the back, 1 up front. Leno in goal for a point. Bit of a talking point for me is I've persisted in playing Leno ahead of Meslier. Meslier is outperforming Leno pretty much week on week.
Yeah, and I picked up on the fact that goalkeepers that keep clean sheets, yeah, that's great. But very rarely do those goalkeepers for big clubs like Mendy for Chelsea as an example, my keeper, very rarely do they accumulate that many saves in a game because the defences are so solid in front of them and the team tends to dominate possession. So there's not a lot of shots against those keepers. Yeah,
so I think unless you're pretty confident of a whole heap of clean sheets, which you might be for, say, someone like Chelsea. I totally agree with you. So, yeah, I should probably start putting a bit more stock and faith in Meslier. So, yeah, Leno in goal for a point. Chilwell, 2 points for Chelsea, which is a shame. Creswell, only 1 point for West Ham. Obviously, they lost 3-1 to Manchester United. Walker-Peters, Southampton, got an assist. I got 5 points. Dallas, just 1 point. Obviously conceded 3 against Chelsea. Zuma got me 8 points because he got a goal. Ziyech in midfield came off super early with an injury, 1 point.
Yeah, hamstring I think it was.
Yeah, and now I think they've currently got him on their website as 25% chance of playing.
So. Yeah, so maybe look at that as a transfer option this week if you've got him.
Maybe, yeah. Solly March, someone who would have been on my bench if not for the aforementioned circumstances, 2 points. Fernandes, Man United, got a goal, 2 bonus points, so 6 points there. Salah, Liverpool. I had him as my captain. Kind of saved my game week in a way. Goal, assist, 3 bonus points for 14, which I guess gave me, 28. And then Calvert-Lewin got a goal, 6 points, and I've already mentioned my bench, so 61. Still slightly confused about if and when or how they actually take off those transfer points, so I guess 57 all up. How about you?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the recurring theme of having more defenders than I would have liked to have had, the same as you, because I had Grealish and Watkins on my bench as well. I benched Kilman because he hadn't played all that many minutes the last week, and he ended up not getting any minutes again this week. So
that's a good call then.
Yeah, maybe one to sort of watch or add to that potential transfer list. But for 4 million, there aren't that many other options around that price point. So I guess the bad for me, Mendy, Chelsea, like I just talked about, they conceded in that loss, in that win against Leeds. Bamford scored, so he only got the 2 points. Bellerin 1 point for Arsenal. Chilwell 2 points, just like you. Masuaku 1 point. Jota, he came on for 17 minutes, only got a point, so that was pretty disappointing because I just brought him into my team. The good though, I mean, I think the good kind of outweighed the bad this week, which was good. Walker Peters 5 points, played this morning against Brighton, got himself an assist. Fernandes only came on for the second half of the match, and he got 2 bonus points and a goal. So it's kind of crazy to me that someone can only play 45 minutes and have that much of an influence on the game, but it's just a testament to...
He's such a difference maker for Manchester.
Oh, yeah, and you know, if you look at the highlights of that match, and you only really need to look at the highlights of that match just to see, it was all West Ham in the first half. Fernandes comes on and just changes the game. I know Pogba had a cracking game for Man United, his first game in 4 years, where he actually played well, but Fernandes was the difference there. Salah, just like yourself, I had him on my team. I didn't captain him, I chose to captain De Bruyne. He got 14 points as well, though, so I got 28 points there. DCL 6 points, and Danny Welbeck, another new signing, only 5.5 million, but he got himself an assist as well, his second assist in 2 games. So
we've talked a bit about that, you know, the idea of judging someone's points particularly on their value. So for Welbeck, as much as I saw, we had an exchange on Twitter last week where someone did actually mention his goal scoring record as being a reason why you might not be so excited to get him, but as you say, at that price point, if a guy's picking up 5 points a game,
I mean, he's going to land on my bench. You know, a lot of the time that he's, you know, that I have him, he's going to be sitting on the bench as maybe my first or second sub. But for 5.5 million, I'm not complaining about the fact that he's picking up more points than Brewster at 4.5 million, and there aren't that many strikers under 6 million, and I don't quite have enough to bump him up to a 6 million striker.
Yeah. Oh, well, that works out well. And look, by the looks of things, you didn't really lose out with your subs.
No. I mean, I left McCarthy on the bench. He got 2 points as well. He was the only point scorer on my bench, so it was either him or Mendy. I did make 3 transfers, took an 8-point hit, ended up getting 71 points in total, so ended up on 63 points. If I hadn't made any of those transfers, I would have kept Kane, and he got 12 points, but with KDB getting 14, Welbeck getting 5, and the fact that St. Maximin didn't play, you know, I ended up coming up net a little bit higher. So no regrets about taking the point hits this week, because for the long-term gain, I think it's worth the short-term pain of not having any of those Spurs assets.
And thus is the end of Game Week 11 for us. Why don't we take a quick break, and then we'll come back and do some speculation.
I love speculating.
I know you do, son. I know you do. We'll be back. Welcome back to Bench Boost Boys, at Bench Boost Boys across social media, benchboostboys@gmail.com. Scott, why don't you take us through some players to watch?
Ooh, interesting one for me. One that hasn't even appeared on my watch list. For someone that's incredibly freakishly tall, flown under the radar, is Vestergaard of Southampton. So
quietly going about his business.
Yeah, he's delivered so many points consistently for Southampton. You know, he towers over a lot of players. So he's really, really dangerous in set pieces, and we know Ward-Prowse, your mate, he's good at whipping a ball in.
Ward-Prowse's dead balls.
Yeah, and Vestergaard, you know, he's been on the end of a couple of those set pieces. So, you know, he's gone onto my watch list. One player that I think has gone onto everyone's watch list after this week, back from his COVID break, Will Zaha.
Can't deny him, can you?
18 points, and it was a huge game. Obviously, they were playing West Brom, so it was not like it was going to be a hard game.
Quick thought. I know there was a lot of speculation around Zaha pre-season, and all his management and agents saying he was, you know, Crystal Palace were going to get lots of offers for him, and they never happened, and so he ended up staying there. Surely you'd think, unless he's had a change of heart, January people are going to come in for Zaha.
I don't know. When I think about the January transfer window, I don't think about huge names moving in that transfer window. It doesn't ever seem to happen. So for me, it's always one of those. Is it going to happen? Does it happen? No, it doesn't. You end up
there'll be a club with who they'd need that money. I mean, you're not going to get change from 30 mil surely for Zaha.
Oh, wouldn't have a clue. But Zaha is for me Chelsea's Grealish.
Sure.
He's
Crystal Palace's.
Yeah. Well, did I say Chelsea?
Yeah.
Of course I did.
Unless you know something and he's going to Chelsea because they need midfielders
I
badly.
fucking don't know anything.
I had noticed.
They've got lots of midfielders. Grealish to Aston Villa is Zaha to Crystal Palace. He's easily the standout player in that team. Crystal Palace, you'd want to be in a pretty good position in the league to let go of him, because if you do, all of a sudden...
sometimes it's out your hand, though, especially if the right money comes in. Maybe you're onto something, though.
But I mean, he's probably, at least 30-40% of their goals? And maybe even more than that in terms of big chances created, so it'd be hard to let go of him.
I just think there's a lot in player power, but I think ultimately it will depend on if anyone's got the money. Anyway, I digress. Please continue.
But the other ones for me that, they fell out of my team when I looked at the fixtures and I panicked. Like a dickhead. Like an utter dickhead.
Oh, I'm a dickhead all the time.
Well, I mean, you were a dickhead at the start of the season when it came to Son. I think we all were. We were all guilty of transferring him out when he had that cracking 24-point game week. But Son came back on the radar. I transferred Kane out. And again...
Can we talk about my theory?
Yeah, let's do it. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but let's rehash it.
It's just quite nice when I'm right about something, even though it's not much of a big shout. But
a broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah, at least. Kane and Son, they do better against stronger teams that have the firepower to attack them.
I would hardly call Arsenal a strong team, to be fair.
Yeah, but they didn't park the bus, did they?
No.
Yeah. So, okay, let me rephrase it. Teams that don't park the bus are far more vulnerable, and I get it though, if you park the bus it's harder to score goals, but anytime a team actually tries to attack Spurs, it feels like Kane and Son are just like, cool, that's our invitation, and it just works.
Well, the reason this episode is called Son of a Hit was Son's goal against Arsenal was an absolute cracker.
Another Kane assist, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to call it an assist when it comes from your own half.
I know, but what a great through ball.
Well, yeah, and Son just ran at the defenders. They backed off him, and they left him. He was probably, truthfully, around 30 yards out when he hit that ball. And went flying into the top right-hand corner. It was a crazy goal. Bamford, again, obviously sitting on my watch list because he scored a goal against Chelsea, but Bamford always seems to score goals. Ward-Prowse, again, dangerous with his set pieces, played well.
Got an assist, didn't he?
Got an assist.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that player ending up on my watch list?
No, I mean, why wouldn't he be? I get it. I guess I've probably been a little bit guilty of looking at somebody's past form in previous seasons and then not really taking into account that by all intents and purposes, Ward-Prowse is probably coming into his prime now. So why wouldn't he suddenly step it up a gear?
Yeah, the last one for me is Danny Ings. The fact that he's been out for 3 weeks, but even though he's just come back and even though he only stepped on the pitch for 45 minutes, he got 8 points. He's been averaging 7 points in the last few games he has played.
Well, points mean prizes.
Yeah, and 8.3 million for a striker that is easily one of their most influential players. Averaging that kind of points per game is a bargain.
Absolutely, and especially if you find yourself in a position where your money for a second or third striker stretches to that, and not to one of the luxury players we talk about. Yeah, you could do a lot worse than Danny Ings, especially now he's back from injury, of course.
And speaking of injuries, what injuries are we kind of looking at this week? I know you just talked about Ziyech before. Yeah,
Ziyech. Martial's down to 75%. We know how we feel about those. It'll probably play if the Premier League or FPL website says it's 75. Aguero's still out. I feel kind of weird about that. Like, is he actually going to come and play some football? Antonio's still got no return date.
One of the players that picked up a card this week, I know a lot of people don't have him, obviously, is Mateus Pereira for West Brom. I don't know why you'd have any West Brom player in your starting lineup except maybe Sam Johnson, the goalkeeper, just because he's going to be making save after save, even though he's going to concede 6 goals a game. But Pereira out until the 27th of December, in case you did have him. He's actually one of their most influential players. Sionsu as well for Leicester. I know a lot of people actually have him.
Castagne's still out, I think.
Yeah, and obviously Jimenez out for a long-term injury. We'll probably have to stop talking about him as an injury person until he actually starts to look like he's coming back.
He could have died.
He could have been killed.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, well, on that note then, why don't we have another quick break so you can, I don't know, urinate, cry, whatever it is you do in the breaks. And then when we come back, we'll have a little look at Game Week 12's fixtures. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Right, we'll be back. It's Bench Boost, boys. So, Scott, Game Week 12 forecast. First game of the week, the mighty Leeds United against West Ham United, without Antonio, as we said before the break. Bamford, goals. Rafinha, ooh, looks exciting. Creswell, an assist. What's going to happen?
I have no idea what's going to happen.
You're like, I don't know what's going to happen now.
Leeds is you love talking about Leeds. I mean, for me, I'm looking at the players that I have in the games, and for me, it's just Masuaku, and I'm going to bench him because I think Leeds are capable of scoring goals. Is
this the game where I actually switch Meslier in for Leno?
Well, I mean, you should because West Ham have that attacking.
No Antonio.
Arsenal are playing Burnley, so looking at that fixture, it's almost a guaranteed clean sheet. Chris Wood's not going to score.
That's my only feeling for keeping him in goal, Leno, is because they're playing Burnley.
West Ham, without Antonio, they can still score goals. Jared Bowen's playing well. Souček pops up occasionally. The thing is, he may keep a clean sheet, but it's the saves. So I think I'm gonna look at the keepers for the saves, the potential for
But this
saves.
is why I talk about Darlow, but I digress. So, okay, I also have Stuart Dallas in my team. Yeah, maybe we'll play. Next game, Wolves versus Aston Villa.
Well, Wolves took an absolute walloping from Liverpool. I think it was 4-0.
And Villa took an absolute rest.
Yeah. So, players like Grealish, Watkins, you have to assume that over that week they've just been training hard, practicing set pieces. I don't know what professional football players do. They don't do what I do. They do exercise.
They just play FIFA, don't they?
Yeah, well, maybe they do what I do. Grealish and Watkins, I reckon they're going to score some goals, truthfully. With Jimenez out, I think I read some statistics somewhere. Jimenez scores over 55% of Wolves' goals.
Yeah.
So where are they going to come from?
Neto.
Pedro Neto is probably one of their most influential players in the midfield, but he's not a striker.
No.
But I think Grealish and Watkins could have a cracking game this week. And again, they're playing. It's not like they were the team. It's not like Aston Villa were the reason that there was a.
It was a training ground at Newcastle, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
speaking of which, what's the next game?
Well, Newcastle versus West Brom. So the chances of this game being cancelled are actually
could happen, right?
Yeah, it's 50-50 right now. It either is or it isn't.
Yeah, sure. So, well, if they do play, I'm rather hoping for a Wilson hat trick for Newcastle.
Well, a lot of people that kept Callum Wilson, or like yourself, transferred him in before the announcement of the postponement of the game, will be celebrating because West Bromwich Albion, they've just let in 5 goals against Crystal Palace. They're just utter shit.
They're garbage, aren't they?
They're absolute garbage. And Callum Wilson's a good player in any fixture, and this is the fixture you want to be playing in. For me, I actually have this as my yawn match of the week. I don't care because I don't have.
Sam Maximin's still out.
Sam Maximum's out injured, but not only that, I transferred him out after his injury, so I don't have any interest in this fixture whatsoever, apart from seeing how Darlow goes because you talk about him so often.
Well, that said as well, if Wilson gets his hat trick, maybe you'll think about transferring him back in. Anyway, next game is the Manchester Derby at Old Trafford. My notes for this one were basically it feels like it's KDB versus Fernandes. KDB suddenly found his form. Fernandes was the super sub. Thoughts, etc.
I think there's no way that Solskjaer can start the game with Fernandes on the bench again, so I think he's going to get 90 minutes. But I, as an owner of both players, both KDB and Fernandes, I'm not putting the armband on either of them because to me it's one of those fixtures where this could end up as 0-0 and all the bonus points are going to go to the defenders. If there are going to be goals in this game, they are going to come from both of those two players, but these teams are so evenly matched right now, with Manchester City hitting form, Man United being above average, but hit and miss. It's hard to call this fixture, and I will just be avoiding putting the armband on either of those two players.
Fair point. Everton versus Chelsea at Everton. That's an interesting kind of battle, this one. DCL against the Chelsea defence. I mean, as you pointed out before we started recording, if Bamford can do it, DCL can do it, right?
Well, DCL's... Well, he's got returns in they've played 11 games, 2 games without returns. So, I mean, those statistics alone make me confident that he can score against anyone. But, Chelsea defenders, I think we read somewhere a little bit earlier today that 3 of the top scoring defenders in the game are Chelsea. Kurt Zouma, Ben Chilwell, and Reece James.
Yeah.
So they're obviously getting clean sheets, and when they're not, Zuma's scoring goals. He's got 4 goals. Ben Chilwell's getting assist after assist. He's even got a couple of goals as well. Reece James, we know he scored an absolute cracker in the first or second game week, but he's also an attacking player as well.
Speaking of attacking players, my one to watch, Mason Mount. Mason Mount's been ticking along since there was a bit of hype around him earlier in the season. Some people, including myself, bought him in, and then it was, is he actually going to start? Well, Lampard's been starting him.
Well, the thing about Lampard is that he does like to pick players in form. We saw that with Olivier Giroud. He scored 4 goals midweek in the Champions League for Chelsea, and obviously he started that game.
He's still a great
on
player.
The weekend. Yeah, and he scored a goal. He's a phenomenal player.
Yeah,
and he's in the kind of
form. He'd walk into a lot of teams.
Yeah, he would, but he's in the kind of form where you can't ignore it.
No,
and someone like Abraham's got to be a little bit nervous about that because Timo Werner seems to be getting the games, so Tammy Abraham's the guy that's probably going to be stepping back when Giroud steps up. So
I imagine so.
But Mason Mount's one of those midfielders that sits in that pool that he's got. He's got a rich pool of these midfielders he can call on. Pulisic.
Ziyech is out at the moment.
Oh, Ziyech has got his hamstring, but you've still got Havertz. You've still got Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi.
He's out.
Pulisic.
Hudson-Odoi.
Oh, is he? Oh, he's cooked.
Yeah, but should be a good game anyway. Definitely expecting goals. Southampton versus Sheffield United. Ings to put the blades to the sword.
Oh, fuck me, Gavin, that's awful.
Thank you.
Danny Ings is obviously the biggest threat for Southampton. He played 45 minutes on the weekend, so he should probably get a start if he gets a week off to recover, I suppose, from that 45 minutes. I'm sure his knee's fine. They probably wouldn't send him out if it wasn't. But Southampton are just a team in form, and Sheffield are just a team that are absolutely fucking not in form.
They are having a very bad time of it.
Yeah.
That's all to say about that one, I imagine. What have we got?
Crystal Palace, Tottenham. Both teams had good wins over the week. Obviously, Tottenham 2-0 over Arsenal is not a big win, but it's a big win for them because it was a derby match. Crystal Palace came. They finished 5-1, I think it was, over West Brom. So they're on fire. So for me, they're both teams that are full of confidence. Zaha might cause a little bit of havoc potentially for the Tottenham defenders, but I think Son and Kane are going to tear Crystal Palace a new arsehole.
What you said, I agree. Fulham hosting Liverpool. If in doubt,
Captain Salah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, my notes here actually say Captain Salah, you fucking idiots. There's absolutely no reason.
Isn't it me that's usually mean to the listeners?
I'm not saying they're all
cruel to be kind.
Idiots,
cruel to be kind.
If you don't have Salah,
you can't captain him.
You can't captain him, obviously, but get him in your team. It'd be crazy not to this week. But getting Salah into your team if you don't have him is always a tough ask because you've got to transfer someone out, or you've got to take a 4-point hit or whatever it might be. But I have Salah in my team. Like I said, I have Fernandes, Salah, and KDB. This week, Fernandes and KDB, they're going to be battling it out on the side. Salah's just going to be just cutting through that Fulham defence like a hot knife through butter. So Jota didn't come on. He came on with 17 minutes left. I have him on my team. I'm going to keep him in this week, even though he only played 17 minutes on the weekend. If he only plays 17 minutes against Fulham, he's still capable of scoring 4 or 5 goals. So that's what I think of Fulham. Anyway.
There you go. Pretty damning assertion. Arsenal versus Burnley. You are the resident Arsenal fan. And your notes here say, and I quote, Arsenal are utter shite. I'm not even sure they can break Burnley down. Luckily, Burnley can't score for shit, so hopefully Bellerin picks up some points.
Yeah, look, Burnley are just crap, but Arsenal aren't a top 6 team anymore. And I hate to say that as an Arsenal fan. It sucks, but
yeah, they're not doing great.
If Arsenal were playing at 6 in the morning, I wouldn't wake up for it.
The frustrating thing is, just to talk in footballing terms for a moment, Arsenal have got a lot of great individual players. And Arteta seems to be a good coach. I mean, he was understudy to Pep at City for a bit. I don't know what's going wrong there.
Well, I mean, you see this with a lot of former Premier League players turned managers like Solskjaer. He's not a good coach. Arteta, it remains to be seen whether or not he's a good coach.
Did you see, to digress even further, let's go take it to another level of inception. Patrick Vieira got sacked from his French club the other week as well.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, just because you played football doesn't mean you fully understand the inner workings of how a team should be coached, should be mentored, should be trained.
Yeah, you tell him, Scott.
But I mean, like, I'm not saying I know, but I'm not going out there pretending to know. And I'm not saying that Arteta's a bad coach, but just because you work under Pep for 2 years doesn't mean you're ready to put your big boy pants on and start coaching. He's still really young.
Well, absolutely. And my underlying point is just that what I said at the top. Arsenal have got some fantastic players.
Yeah.
And their results are far from fantastic. I am also, from a selfish point of view, hoping, though, for a Leno clean sheet, of course.
Yeah. Well, so hang on. Have you decided? I guess we'll get to that, but you are tossing up between finally giving Messi the chance.
I'm tossing. And on that note, the last game of the game week is Leicester against Brighton and Hove Albion.
Yeah, so Jamie Vardy scored a goal on the weekend. Pretty wild celebration, smashed the corner flag. But Danny Welbeck, I brought him in last week. He's 2 assists in a row. So the big thing for Brighton is that Malpe started again. Obviously, he had that hamstring.
He didn't
issue.
start, did he?
No. But I mean, he came on. Sorry,
right.
Halfway through, or halfway through the second half. I think the commentators even said this, but he's a selfish prick, Malpe. But Danny Welbeck's not going off and I mean, his last 2 assists have been him being fouled in the penalty area, or like the one this morning, he kicked the ball over his head and I think it was Ward-Prowse fondled his balls.
Right. Yeah, he fondled the ball.
Yeah. So it's not like Welbeck's doing great passes in the 18-yard box or anything like that for these assists. But
getting the points though.
But yeah, Malpe's a goal scorer. I mean, Welbeck's getting a bit of a reputation as someone that can assist, so I'm hoping for some points there.
Well, maybe they'll link up. Alright, that takes us to the end of the Game Week 12 fixtures. We'll take a quick break now and we'll come back with the mailbag.
Let's do it.
You ready to fondle the bag?
Yeah, I said let's do it. That was the signal that we'll...
So you're going to get some... You're going to fondle it? Going to squeeze it? Going to caress it?
We'll be back after this short break.
Bye. Bench boost, boys, back in full effect. It's the mailbag.
There's no way you can make that effect happen in the editing process later?
I like to do things organically.
Right. Our first question actually comes from one of our newest members to the bench, Peter of He Could Have Been Killed.
He could have been killed.
Asks, what are your views on using transfer hits, and when is it a good time to use a hit?
Great question, Peter. I don't even know if I'm particularly well equipped to answer this.
I know you're not very well equipped, Kevin, I can see that.
I don't have to wear clothes. It's a podcast.
So for me, the answer is clearly don't listen to Gavin and I, because even though we've scored fairly well in the last couple of weeks, our points hits have cost us. For you, you've been below the average as a result.
I am below average, yes.
For me, it's taken what could have been a really good game week for me and moved me back underneath some of the players that I wanted to pass in my mini leagues. But in saying that, I think you've got to look at points hits for the reasons why you're doing them. Mm-hmm. So actually, I think that's this question. When is it a good point to use them? So for me, a points hit should be used if you're looking to bring a particular player in form into a team.
Sure.
But a premium player?
Well, and often the mechanics of bringing a premium player in often mean that you can't do a like for like unless you're literally getting rid of KDB.
Yeah, you got to get rid of KDB
Fernandes.
to get rid of Fernandes, right? Or
You're going to have to make several movements.
yeah, you've got to make several movements, and that's where you take point hits.
Yeah.
And premium players, we know they're worth it, except Aubameyang. But that's one of the reasons why it's worth doing. The other big one is multiple injuries.
Sure.
Now, I think a big part of the reason why a lot of people would have taken 4-point hits over the last game week would have been because of the postponement of that Newcastle Aston Villa game. For me, that just speaks to the fact that their bench they don't trust their own bench players. I know you can't load your team up with 15 phenomenal players, but it is possible to get in 11 or 12 phenomenal players and 3 good ones.
Also, and not to get too deep with this, but if you know that a player's out for a week, i.e. say you had Grealish or Callum Wilson, you've got to be thinking, if you take that 4-point hit or more to replace them, are you going to get that back from the guy who's coming in? And we've talked about the idea that, you don't have a crystal ball, so you don't know for sure, but you kind of make it educated guesses. So yeah, I reckon if you know a guy's only going to be on the bench for a week, well, that's okay. You don't have to rush to get them out, because it's also can be tricky to get them back in. So what you might find is you took a 4-point hit this week to get them out, and now they're back and you want them back in next week, and you might end up having to take another 4-point hit to work them back into the team.
And on top of that, you might want to get them back into the team, but one of your other players has been injured, so you've got to use another 4-point hit. You can try and roll transfers over so that you don't have to take these points here.
Have you done that at all this season?
I haven't.
Me neither.
And
I've talked a couple times about wanting to do it. It's never happened.
And this week I was sitting there going, you know what? I'm happy with my team. And then something just touches me, and I'm just...
You can't help but tinker.
No, I'm just like, you know what? This could be better.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think I upset your bro when I went a bit too introspective with my answer to him the other week. But with a question like Peter's, I can't help but think that that's probably the better way to go. And it always rolls back to, and this is going to sound pretty hypocritical coming from someone like me, who's been bang average for the last 3 game weeks, but it's that kind of you can't see into the future, but try and make educated guesses. Look at the form of players, look at the fixtures, watch the games, and then if you just got to take that gut feeling hit and just go, you know what, I can take 4 points. I've quite regularly taken a 4-point hit and not regretted it. I've also taken 8-point hits and 12-point hits, and I wouldn't want to do that regularly.
No. The guy that's going to win this overall competition, I can almost say with certainty, he's probably only going to take 1 4-point hit the whole season.
Really? You reckon?
Yeah. Well, I do, genuinely, because they're the guys that, you should see their spreadsheets.
Yeah, well, I know some people have said that that some of these top guys have talked about they try to take as few hits as possible. I'm a little bit more, avant-garde about it, and I will regularly take 4-point hits.
The last reason I would say, Peter, is this season especially, we're going to be looking at quite a few teams where we're looking at double game weeks. So as an example, with Aston Villa and the Newcastle game being postponed, at some point that game's going to have to be made up in a future game week. So Aston Villa will end up playing 2 games in that 1 week. Now, if you're sitting there going, well, Aston Villa are playing Newcastle, who are objectively quite shit, and they might end up having a double game week where they're playing Fulham. Well, take the points hit to bring in Grealish, Watkins, and maybe Tyrone Mings or Ross Barkley when he's fit again. Because you're looking at that and going, well, yeah, it's going to cost me 8 points, but if Grealish, who's the captain, is going to play at least 70 minutes of both of those 2 games, probably even 90 and 70, or maybe 90 and 90, he's going to end up scoring at least double digits in one of those 2 games, maybe both. And you're going to make up that points difference so quickly.
And on that note as well, and outside of that specific example, as much as it would be nice to make up the points from whoever you bring in immediately, if you're bringing in a decent player, maybe you'll just make that up in 2 or 3 weeks. That's not the end of the world.
Yeah, look, I think we just spoke so much shit that Pete's going to have to spend the next week sifting through that to figure out exactly...
100%. It's not an easy question to answer.
I can't even remember what the question was. We've just done so much talking.
It's like, why would you take a hit? And I think the reason you would is if you have... Okay, I'll boil it down to this. The reason why you would take a hit, so 4-point hit particularly, i.e. 2 transfers in a game week, is because you don't have faith in the guy who's in the team. Maybe he's injured, maybe he's not playing well, and you have a lot of faith in the person you want to bring in instead, or the people you want to bring in instead. That's why you take a hit. Standing ovation? You don't look impressed.
You need to do 2 different little timestamps for when the question was asked and that long-winded answer, and then the second time you answered it, which was more concise.
Click here for the concise, abridged version of the answer.
Too long didn't read, bang.
You're welcome, Peter. Now, I believe we have another question. Torren of Tossbags asks, why is no one considering Dyer at his price point? Considering the team he is in, he's only owned by 3.2% of teams. Now, I'm informed that he's not talking about Kieran Dyer.
He's talking about Eric Dyer.
And he's not talking about Nathan Dyer.
I have to assume he's talking about Eric Dyer.
He's got to be. I don't think any other Dyers are active, are they? Anyway.
Well, he's 3.2%.
There we go. We've locked it in. He's talking about Eric Dyer.
5 million, so he's actually a pretty decent price point for a defender.
Where's he getting his points?
Well, he's getting his points. Actually, let's look at game week 6 onwards, because it's game week 11 now. 6 points, 2 points, 6.7, 6. So he's actually scored a lot of points in the last few game weeks.
I think we've talked, outside of luxury plays as well, we've kind of established that if you're regularly getting 5+ points, that's a very good return.
Yeah. The thing is, though, Torren, and this is the one thing that I've, apart from one bonus point over the course of those last 4 games, all 4 of those last 4 games have been clean sheets for Tottenham. So arguably any Tottenham defender is a pretty good pickup.
I know, but on a personal level, I always feel a little nervous about bringing in a defender who only gets his points from clean sheets.
Yeah.
And I know I've mentioned that earlier in the season, and then watched players that I've benched or got rid of continue to get clean sheets, but I feel like it's a hard thing to bank on.
Yeah, and for someone like Dyer, looking forward, they've got Crystal Palace away. That could be another clean sheet, unless Zaha pulls out some magic. Then you've got Liverpool. I don't think that there are many teams capable of keeping a clean sheet against Liverpool right now. Leicester, obviously, Jamie Vardy's the biggest goal threat there. The fixtures do get pretty easy for Tottenham Hotspur, but I think the overarching reason why a lot of people wouldn't have Eric Dyer is because you can really only have 3 players from one team. I'm someone that only likes to have 2. If I'm going to have 2 players from Spurs, it's going to be Son and Kane.
That's a fair point.
And the other thing too is that 5 million, there are players that are playing, and Vestergaard's one we talked about a little bit earlier, 4.8 million I think he costs. There are players that are underneath that 5 million price point that are actually scoring more points.
Better return.
Yeah.
That's, to me, sounds like a very solid answer, Scott. Thanks for your question, Torren.
Although in saying that, Torren, I will say this.
Go on.
As much as I'm an Arsenal fan and Spurs,
make you physically sick.
I personally, I think that Eric Dyer could be a good choice. Truthfully, he's as good a choice as any.
Absolutely, and he seems to have settled in well to his preferred role now, centre back.
And he's a differential. So
okay, well, on that note, we're going to have a quick note now from this week's sponsor. Sponsoring Bench Boost Boys Game Week 12 forecast, son of a hit, is Laughter, Sex, Vegetables and Fish. 10 Secrets of Long Living People, written by Dr. John Tickle. It's his bestseller, and it's your guide to a better life. So check that book out, and big thanks to Dr. John Tickle for sponsoring us. Let's go. What's funny about that?
Nothing.
You don't laugh at the sponsor.
No, just fish.
Did you laugh because I said sex?
No.
Fish.
I laughed
sex.
Because you said laughter.
No, fair point. I'm sorry. I was quick to judge. Let's go to a break, and then we'll be back for our final section of the week, where we're going to talk about all the wonderful things we're going to do with our own teams that we're definitely not going to regret, and we're going to be so happy. And next week we'll be celebrating those things. Probably one of us will. We'll be back. It's the final section. Bench Boost Boys. Scott.
Yeah.
What are you going to do this week, mate?
What am I going to do this week? Well, I was thinking about rolling a transfer like we talked about earlier, but like I said, my mind, when you said you've got to tinker with it. I like to tinker with my team.
Can't help it.
It's close to perfect. It's 2 weeks away from being perfect.
Ooh.
And I say that knowing I've got Danny Welbeck in my team. This week I've decided I'm going to transfer out Mendy for Chelsea. He's a good goalkeeper. He's a phenomenal goalkeeper. Chelsea really capable of keeping clean sheets, but again, They don't get challenged enough by opposition teams.
Who are you bringing in?
I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation of this word, but Melier.
Monsieur Melier.
Is it Melier?
Melier.
Oh yeah, it's like a fine cheese from Leeds.
So you're bringing in the keeper that I may be benching.
Yeah, but I mean, that's you. I mean, I'm not saying I'm right, but
that's
I'm
damning. That's very
massively ahead of you.
There you go. That's your transfer. What else is going on?
So obviously this week with KDB and Fernandez off in the corner belting each other, I'm going to captain Saha because why wouldn't you?
Salah.
What did I say?
Saha. Louis Saha, ex-Fulham striker, is being captain this week. You heard it here first. But if he can't make it, I reckon Scott will captain Mohamed Salah.
This podcast is also brought to you by another sponsor, Canadian Club, which I've clearly had way too much of tonight. Salah.
I've heard of him.
I'm captaining Salah. I'm not going to play any chips. I'm going to play a 3-5-2. Welbeck, Kilman, Masuaku and McCarthy on the bench. I will start Fernandez and KDB. They'll be battling it out. But again, if the game ends 0-0, neither of those two players are going to get bonus points. But if the game ends 2-2, both of those players are going to get 3 bonus points. You heard it here first.
There you go.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Well, Ziyech is out injured, 25% chance of playing. He's gone. He is gone. And I've brought back Son
Heung-min.
He's back. Backstreet's back, all right. So Son's in. I'm going to play a 3-4-3, much like yourself. Or you much like me, because you always copy me. Salah for captain. Salah for president. So I am playing a 3-4-3. Leno in goal. I just don't think this is the game to play Melier.
Are you...
Don't judge me, bro.
You know what?
Leno's going to get those clean sheet points against Burnley.
This is going to be another one of those situations where you could have played your bench boost.
No, well, we'll talk about that in a second. Little fact.
Oh, are you playing your bench?
Stop. You're backing the Leeds keeper, and I'm the Leeds fan, and I'm backing the Arsenal keeper, and you're the Arsenal fan. Isn't that funny? So, Chilwell at the back, Walker Peters and Zuma. So, yeah, 2 Chelsea defenders. Sumi. Midfield, Grealish, Son, Fernandez, Salah, captaining Salah. Front line of Callum Wilson, Ollie Watkins, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Bench, Melier, Dallas, Solly March, Creswell. I don't think this is a bench boost weekend.
Well, yeah, no.
Not with Solly March and Dallas.
I mean, how many points are they really going to get? I mean, it'd be crazy if Solly March ended up finally doing something for Brighton. But
you never know. Stranger things have happened, but not on my watch.
One thing I do want to talk about a little bit is the sort of long-term goal. I bought in Diogo Jota last week.
Yeah.
Jota, whatever it is. Brought him in last week. He only played 17 minutes. Reactively, I think I was probably one of about 1 million people that bought him in. He's owned by about 30% of people now. My midfield currently is Fernandez, Jota, Salah, De Bruyne, Grealish. So objectively a phenomenal midfield. But what I'm really trying to accomplish with this Melier transfer out is I'm getting that 500,000 points in the bank.
Yeah.
And I'm going to actually use that 500,000 and Jota's money
next week,
and I'm going to bring in Zaha. Now Zaha's fixtures aren't super great,
but they get better, right?
Moving forward, it's one of those things where I'm going to have to end up chopping and changing my midfield and whether or not I'm starting Danny Welbeck. So Leicester City's not, that's a tough team this week. That's who Brighton have. So Danny Welbeck's going on the bench. After that, it's Fulham, Sheffield. I'd be happy to play Welbeck in my front line. Crystal Palace have Tottenham, so I'm happy not to bring in Zaha this week.
Or also, if you're in a position where you might have a good player on your bench, maybe next week or the week after, it might be time for you to do your bench boost. You fucking prick. Thoughts?
Well, no. You know when I'm using my bench boost.
Alright, fair enough. Well, let's not blow your load too soon. I think you said enough. Any final thoughts?
No, don't forget to join the league. Again, the code to join is P2IFBX. Across all the socials, Twitter, Bench Boost Boys.
It's at Bench Boost Boys and everything, really.
Yep.
Who knows where the fuck you're listening to this, but we're everywhere. So if you're on the website, benchboostboys.club, but you actually like Spotify, you can find us on there, Apple Podcasts, everywhere. We're everywhere. YouTube, Mixcloud. We're everywhere, aren't we?
Yeah.
All right, well, I hope you all have a fantastic game week, but not one as good as mine. Scott, get fucked. Any last words?
No, we'll see you next week.
Cool. Goodbye.